welcome to the Creep Scream Horror Stories, where shadows whisper and true terror breathes. Tonight, we open the door to one of the darkest homes in British history. This isn't fiction, it's far worse. Everyone in Gloucester knew about 25, Cromwell Street. It looked like any other house on the block, red bricks, white windows, flowers in the front. There were no ghosts flying around, no strange symbols, nothing that would make you think twice, but the people inside. That was a different story. Fred and Rose West lived there, and people disappeared there. Chapter 1, Neighbors know more than they say. At first, the neighbors thought Fred and Rose were just a strange couple. Fred was a builder, always working on the house, digging, lifting, fixing, but never finishing. Rose? She seemed like a stay-at-home mom, a little rough, a little loud, the kind who yelled at her kids in the front yard, then smiled sweetly when the mailman came. People tried to ignore the strange things. They told themselves it was none of their business. But deep down, they knew something wasn't right. The Daltons, who lived next door, noticed things first. Weird smell again, Mrs. Dalton said, opening her window one morning. It was the fourth time that week. Dalton sniffed. It's like rotting meat. But it wasn't just the smell. It was the sounds, bangs, whispers, sometimes, screams. Chapter 2, The Garden of Bones. Fred loved working in the garden, more than anyone else on the street. Every weekend, shovel in hand, he'd dig deep holes, then fill them back up, then dig again. When asked, he said he was laying pipes, or planting new flowers, but the flowers never grew. Mrs. Dalton once asked, "What are you burying, Fred?" He smiled. "Memories," he said, and kept digging. She laughed it off, but that night she didn't sleep. Chapter 3, Visitors Who Never Left. Fred and Rose often took in lodgers, mostly young girls, runaways, homeless teens, girls with no families to check on them. They'd stay for a few weeks, then vanish. When asked, Fred would say, "Oh, she moved out, got a job in London." Rose would nod, adding, "Lovely girl, hope she's doing well." But they said the same thing about every girl who vanished. Lucy, age 16, Anne, age 17, Charmaine, age 8, gone. No letters, no calls, no goodbye, just gone. Chapter 4, The Basement Door. There was a door under the stairs. It was always locked. Fred called it his workshop, but there were no tools, no sawdust, no shelves, just darkness. The kids in the house were told never to go near it. But one day, a boy named Stephen, Fred and Rose's son, got curious. He snuck downstairs while Fred was out. He pressed his ear to the door. He heard breathing. He ran upstairs and never spoke of it again. Chapter 5, Caroline's Nightmare. Caroline was 15. She'd had a fight with her parents and ran away. Fred found her near the bus station. "You need a place to stay?" he asked kindly. "We've got a room. My wife's great with girls your age." Tired and scared, Caroline followed him. The tea Rose gave her tasted strange. Her head swam. She passed out. When she woke, she was tied to a bed in the basement. The light flickered. The air was cold. Her arms burned from the rope. Fred came down the stairs holding tape and gloves. "You're lucky," he said. "We like you." For days, she was tortured. Fed just enough to stay alive. Hurt just enough to scream. But Caroline was smart. She waited, watched. One night, Fred forgot to lock her cuff after feeding her. She broke free, crawled up the stairs, and ran barefoot into the street, covered in blood, screaming, crying. Someone called the police. Caroline's story made the papers, but it was only the beginning. Chapter 6, The Police Return. The first time the police came, Fred fooled them. The second time, they weren't so easy to trick. Caroline's report was serious. She had bruises, scars, fear in her eyes. They got a warrant. They dug up the garden. The first skeleton they found was under the patio, then 2 more near the fence, then one in the basement. Bones everywhere, small bones, teeth, ribs, skulls, all girls, all missing. Chapter 7, The Confessions. Fred was arrested. He said little at first, but one night, he asked to speak to an officer alone. "There's more," he whispered. "You'll find more." He led them to the remains of his daughter, Heather. She had talked about going to college. Fred said she had talked too much. He laughed when they found her bones under the bathroom floor. When asked why he did it, Fred just shrugged. "They wanted to leave. I made sure they stayed." Chapter 8, Rose, the Devil in a Dress. While Fred sat in jail, Rose denied everything. "I had nothing to do with it," she screamed at reporters, but the truth came out. Letters, witnesses, her own children told the truth. She beat us, she helped him, she laughed when they screamed. Rose wasn't just a quiet wife, she was worse than Fred. She lured the girls, gave them tea, chose who lived and who died. Then one in the basement, bones everywhere, small bones, teeth, ribs, skulls, all girls, all missing. Chapter 7, The Confessions. Fred was arrested. He said little at first, but one night, he asked to speak to an officer alone. "There's more," he whispered. "You'll find more." He led them to the remains of his daughter, Heather. She had talked about going to college. Fred said she had talked too much. He laughed when they found her bones under the bathroom floor. When asked why he did it, Fred just shrugged. "They wanted to leave. I made sure they stayed." Chapter 8, Rose, the Devil in a Dress. While Fred sat in jail, Rose denied everything. "I had nothing to do with it," she screamed at reporters, but the truth came out. Letters, witnesses, her own children told the truth. She beat us, she helped him, she laughed when they screamed. Rose wasn't just a quiet wife, she was worse than Fred. She lured the girls, gave them tea, chose who lived and who died. Chapter 9, Trial of Monsters. In court, Fred looked bored. He stared at the floor. Rose glared at everyone. She showed no guilt, no sadness, no shame. Photos of the victims were shown. Descriptions of the torture were read aloud. The crowd cried. Rose didn't blink. Fred never stood trial. He hanged himself in his cell using bedsheets. Cowards escape. But Rose lived. And she still does. Locked away in a prison cell, older now, but still cold. Chapter 10, The House is No More. The government tore down 25, Cromwell Street. Neighbors cheered. Others watched in silence. Bulldozers crushed the bricks, the blood, the memories. They turned the space into an empty lot. No one dares build there. No one dares walk over it at night. They say if you stand close, you can hear crying. Sometimes, screaming. Sometimes, laughter. Chapter 11, The Children Left Behind. Fred and Rose had children. Some were theirs. Some were stolen. All were broken. Stephen, one of the boys, grew up with nightmares. He said he'd wake up hearing whispers. He once saw Rose washing blood off a knife. When he asked, she smiled. "Just chicken," she said. He never ate meat again. One daughter, May, wrote a book. She said the worst part wasn't the deaths. It was how normal it all seemed. "How evil can wear a smile," she wrote. Chapter 12, The Survivor's Silence. Some girls got away. Caroline, Lucy Partington, who vanished at a bus stop. Teresa Siegenthorpe, a student last seen hitchhiking. Some were never found. Their families still wait, still hope. But hope fades when the truth is this dark. The silence from that house was louder than screams. Chapter 13, Cold Cases and Cold Nights. Police believe Fred and Rose may have killed more than 12 people. Maybe 20, maybe more. Bodies buried in places no one will ever find. One officer said, Fred knew exactly where to hide a body. And Rose? She knew how to hide herself. Behind makeup. Behind fake tears. Behind a smile. Chapter 14, The Curse of Cromwell Street. Teenagers sometimes dare each other to visit the lot. Most run away. Some leave flowers for the victims. One said they saw a girl in white crying near the fence. Others say they felt a hand grab their ankle. One boy collapsed, shaking, and refused to speak for 3 days. No one laughs after visiting Cromwell Street. The air is heavy. The silence is sharp. Like the evil never left. Chapter 15, The Truth Hurts. This story is not just horror. It's real. Fred and Rose West were real. Their victims were real. They smiled at neighbors, waved at postmen, played with kids. And at night, they became monsters. The worst kind. The kind who hide in plain sight. Final chapter, The Evil Next Door. We lock our doors at night. We teach our kids about stranger danger. But Fred and Rose West weren't strangers. They were neighbors. They offered help. They offered kindness. They offered safety. And then they took everything. Let this story be a warning. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes, it wears a friendly smile, and lives right next door. You've just heard another true tale from the Creep Scream Horror Stories. If it chilled your bones, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. Because the next story might be watching you. Sleep tight, if you still can.